Good day, subscribers, friends of the channel, fellow South Africans. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Advocate Moyakwa again. I wanted at this point in time to indicate to you I'm busy with Series 4 that deals with the recusal of Deputy Chief Justice Zondo. The specific topic in Series 4 relates to the reasons that were advanced by Jacob Zuma and his legal team relating to the recusal of the Deputy Chief Justice Zondo. And I'm going to simply go through each of the reasons, and thereafter, as I am moving through the reasons, I will also give my thoughts as to what I think about each of the reasons for recusal advanced by them. The first reason that the Jacob Zuma indicated was that given their personal relationship with the Deputy Chief Justice should have declined to chair the Commission of Inquiry. And the reason they explain is that this is because when you look at the terms of reference, they indicated that him as Jacob Zuma was going to be one of the implicated members. Now, I'm sure South Africa, you already looked at the earlier series, and you'll realize that this is a very funny one. This is a very funny one in a sense that we know that the president ultimately, on recommendations of the Chief Justice Mogoeng, was the one that actually appointed Deputy Chief Justice Zondo. And if, in my view, if he had a reservation on any of these issues, at that stage, he could have raised an issue with Chief Justice to say, but this might be problematic, and this is why I believe it is problematic. And he failed to do it then, and it is very convenient that he raises this issue now relating to the personal relationship. Secondly, I must explain to you South Africans that remember, the Deputy Chief Justice Zondo has presided over cases where Jacob Zuma is a party or is cited, and also where family members of his, like Duduzane, were affected. And none of those incidents did they ever raise an issue relating to this specific personal relationship and whether it would hinder or affect the independence and impartiality of the Deputy Chief Justice. I must remind you that there was a case where Duduzane himself was involved. Chief Justice presided over that case, and these objections were not raised. The recusal was not raised at that time, and it was maybe convenient for them at that time to allow Chief Justice Zondo, Deputy Chief Justice Zondo, to preside over the matter. But it's very funny because even after that, Jacob Zuma appeared 7 times in cases where Chief Justice Zondo is one of the presiding officers. And even at that time, these reasons were not advanced. Recusal was not an issue. So why now? And if you go and you look at the statement made by Chief Justice Zondo, you realize that there's no substantive reason. And this so-called relationship is a facade on the part of Jacob Zuma. It's a one-sided relationship that only Jacob Zuma knows about as far as the friendship of them is concerned. It was a professional relationship, it was a cordial relationship, but it was not a close friendship that could perhaps blur the ability or hinder the ability of Justice Zondo to make his decisions or recommendations. And at that time, remember, Justice Zondo, it's many, many years ago, in the early 90s, Justice Zondo was still working as a partner in a law firm. And obviously through his wife, Tobeka Madiba, there was some family connection there. And even on admission of Justice Zondo, their relationship was a cordial relationship, but not of a nature where it is friends. I must emphasize, they were not friends. So it is convenient today that even remember when the Jacob Zuma appeared the first time in the Commission of Inquiry, never raised this issue. So why today? If Jacob Zuma doesn't want to come, it is his problem. The Justice Zondo would then make findings on the basis of witnesses that came before him, and then he can make an inference. But also for me, I will later now move to explain to you what for me the fuss is about. But at this point in time, let me deal with the second reason that they advanced. He says that the chairperson made certain comments whose effect or suggestion is that Zuma is already guilty of an offense of state capture. And these comments, according to them, carry an insinuation about Zuma's involvement in the unlawful capture of the state while he was president. That is the second reason. And they cite there a number of issues. They say that Zuma was the commission was biased in the identification of witnesses that come and testify. They indicate that the manner in which the commission was very selective on the type of witnesses that they called, the narrative those witnesses had, it clearly, according to them, their testimony was equally prejudicial to him as a person. And then he says that these comments made by the Justice Zondo appears to be an attempt to implicate Zuma specific without any concrete evidence. They continue to say, but the commission seemingly selected these witnesses so that they can sustain a particular narrative which was started by the public protector, and then a narrative then that was adopted by the North Gauteng High Court, as well as the Commission of Inquiry. Then they go on further to say these comments indicate that there was real estate capture or corruption. That's what they are saying. He says, if you look at these witnesses, for example, Pravin Gordhan, Mcebisi Jonas, Vicky Mentor, Trevor Manuel, Barbara Hogan, and many others, they call them the sweetheart witnesses, and they said it excluded other members of the cabinet who could have given a different version or a contrary version to what these witnesses have said. And then he says that Commission of Inquiry seems to have identified first and then interviewed persons who would implicate Zuma in some wrongdoing. And then they continue to say that it is apparent that people who were called were politically hostile to Zuma and had some grievance with Zuma or some complaint with Zuma, and then some were reshuffled by Zuma. And then they continue to say, but the commission also attempted to implicate Zuma or the ANC in some fraudulent or corrupt activities to sustain this narrative that over the 9 years that Zuma was serving the country as president, they were wasted years characterized by state capture, fraud, and corruption. And then they continue to say that if state capture exists, it would be important then to solicit the views of a wide range of cabinet members and other officials during his tenure, and not merely those who are aggrieved by Zuma because Zuma either fired them or reshuffled them from cabinet. South Africans, now these are a number of issues that are very heavy. And one thing I'll tell you for sure is that Zuma will not succeed with his application on the basis of this reason. Remember, witnesses are invited to come if they have any information that relates to the fraud and corruption inquiry. One, there is no offense called state capture in any in common law or in legislation in South Africa. And the Zuma, what is clear here is that he is very afraid that there seems to be some credence or merit in what the witnesses are saying, and that is why he's so flaky about coming and confronting the witnesses, cross-examining the witnesses, and that is why he's so reluctant and is trying to challenge this whole process. And in my view, the second reason also will equally fall flat, because it cannot be anywhere. When you apply for recusal, you are applying for recusal on the basis of the individual who is Justice Zondo, not on the basis of the institution of the tribunal. You see, so in my view, this argument is more political smear campaign to try and illegitimize the commission of inquiry, and does not address the legal questions that are necessary for to deal with the question of recusal. So that is, in my view, that the second argument is not going to hold water as well, because one cannot objectively, reasonably come up with all these things other than conspiracy theories of Jacob Zuma. And if Jacob Zuma has witnesses that really have a different narrative to the state capture narrative that he calls, then he must bring them. If there are people that were saying there's no fraud, there's no corruption, they must come and give that information to the commission, or confront the evidence that is before the commission, so that at least the chairperson has a more broader view of what the issues are, and then be able to make his own informed decision. The third issue relates to the state capture. The third reason of recusal relates to the fact that the chairperson singled Zuma out for public announcements by addressing issues through the media. And he says that he is the only witness that Justice Zondo has done these press statements about, or have been issued as the chairperson. Equally, they are saying that the appearance of JZ at the commission was seemingly well orchestrated and publicized conferences. They preceded by adverse remarks of controversial remarks from the Justice Zondo. They are further suggesting that Zuma has not been cooperating with the Commission of Inquiry. And he says every time that Justice Zondo needed answers, or certain answers from Zuma, he would do it he would make public utterances or statements. And then he says it was never done for any other witnesses. Then Zuma goes on to say, but also it appears that the Deputy Chief Justice made well-publicized comments designed to trigger political hostility against Zuma. And then he concluded that state capture, that Justice Zondo concluded that state capture exists, and that he must, as Zuma, answer for it, that his position is contrary to what the commission was to investigate, which was to find out if there is a state capture, or merely to confirm state capture. Now, he concludes by saying that the Commission of Inquiry does not provide an impartial platform to deal with the facts properly, that it has degenerated into investigations that support narratives of state capture and corruption, and it is the only sort of version that those that have unresolved issues with Zuma anyway. Now, he says then even more recently it has become a sort of an agent by law enforcement agencies and prosecution authorities. He says that it has they completely disregarded his testimony that he made earlier. And he says this political context is important because he says there were two intelligence reports which indicate that political influence that Zuma had in the country at the time has to be dealt with or eliminated. And he says that based on his work and experience as a trained intelligence officer, that the commission was in essence the perfection of a political project that began a long time ago, which was targeted to eliminate the influence of Zuma in the South African politics. He says that if the commission was acting fairly or impartially, it would not ignore serious allegations going to the core of its constitutional and political legitimacy. He says that if Chief Justice Zondo had bothered to investigate, he would have found that these things have been selected and appointed by the public protector and the court to preside over the political project. He says it appears that the justice paid no regard to his testimony. Instead, his testimony has been carefully ridiculed by those he feared. Now, all of these things are a lot of noise that says nothing about the law. They speak to the politics. It is a clear attempt by Jacob Zuma to delegitimize the Commission of Inquiry in the eyes of South Africans. And it is really an indirect free kick to try and blindside us, move our attention from what the issues of the commission are and the issues that the commission has to deal with. And at the end of the day, remember, the commission is a start of a process. We'll still have a criminal trial to determine whether or not there was corruption and whether or not there was fraud. So at this point in time, it is really not a sufficient or good enough reason, in my view, a third reason for Justice Zondo to recuse himself. It is a political smear campaign trying to discredit the commission, trying to ensure that whoever is the president would not have the courage to follow through on the recommendations of the commission. So this, in my view, JZ, you have failed to convince me, and I'm sure you'll fail also to convince Chief Justice Zondo when he gives his judgment now at 10. And I'm a bit late to post this video, but you are late certainly. And I don't think at the end of this today, Justice Zondo will still be the presiding chairperson, I certainly believe. Despite that, the fourth reason was that the chairperson clearly doubts his bona fides. On 2 occasions, he questioned or doubted my statement that I had traveled to seek medical attention. And this is a very problematic issue. If you are a witness and you go to the doctor and there are set appointments for this, and based on whatever illness, you would obviously bring proof. And once you bring proof, that issue would be dealt with. So it is really Zuma here judging himself to say that Chief Justice Zondo doubts him. And anyway, the point is, Chief Justice, in my view, doesn't have to believe you, or believe. He will believe the evidence that you bring. He will believe the evidence that you bring, and based on the evidence, he will make a determination whether what you are saying is truthful or not. And when you also are on the stand and you are being cross-examined, all of these things, processes, will help inform him of your character, your truthfulness, and whether or not you lie or are not lying. But it cannot be that you are already demanding him to believe you even before we know what you're going to talk about at the commission. And this issue around your medical issue, in my view, is not so much serious that it can form the basis of a recusal of Judge Zondo. And then the last reason, South Africans, that they indicate is that the commission has tended to call only those witnesses, particularly members of the cabinet, that implicate him in some way or that are disgruntled against Zuma in some way, and because Zuma essentially removed him from post. This, in my view, is neither here nor there. So what? So what if they are disgruntled? So what if they are negative? They brought evidence, and that evidence is standing, and you must challenge that evidence. Without challenging that evidence, we cannot take you seriously. So Zuma, come, answer an account, respond to the claims, and then we can decide. Let South Africans decide whether they will believe them or you. And if you've got a good enough story to tell, South Africans will probably believe you. And don't demand us to trust you or to believe you. Come and talk to us. Then we can decide whether we agree with you or we don't agree with you. But trying to move our attention from what the issues are is quite problematic. Then lastly, South Africans, he says the above issues are sufficient in his view to justify his apprehension or the application for the chairperson to recuse himself. And I'm saying, South Africans, that one, Zuma is jumping the gun. This is a commission of inquiry. It will make recommendations. Recommendations will go to the president. The president will probably call the National Prosecuting Authority. They will look at the evidence that were presented. They will make a determination whether there's prima facie evidence of fraud and corruption. And if they find prima facie evidence of fraud and corruption, they will then write charge sheets and take the case to court. And then Zuma will equally have an opportunity to test the allegations that are in the Commission of Inquiry. Why do you want to stifle already at this stage the Commission of Inquiry so that information will not come for South Africans to know actually what happened to their hard-earned taxpayers' money, what happened to their state coffers? We want to know, and there are allegations that are made against you. Come and answer them. You are allowed also to exercise your right to remain silent, and that is also not a problem. And this is one of the issues where I believe that Zuma is jumping the gun already. And you can see this is a guy that has judged himself already. He has written himself out and he doesn't believe there's a comeback. He says, I'm aware that some believe that I am so guilty and that I do not deserve to be treated fairly by our courts or our legal processes. At the end of the day, Zuma, no South African, no media house can determine your guilt or innocence. The courts will do that for us. And it is not that stage now where we look at your guilt or innocence. So go and be heard by the Commission of Inquiry, and where you believe that incriminating questions are being asked, do not answer them. And that is just a free advice. You don't have to pay me for that. And then again, lastly, you are jumping the gun, because he says that the approach of our courts and the presiding officers ought to presume one innocent and not be deepened existing prejudices against me without due process. In other words, we must not make things worse for Zuma. And in my view, what I want to say is that there's nobody making certain things or conclusions about Zuma without Zuma being heard. We want Zuma to be heard, but we need Zuma to go to the commission so that we can hear him properly. He is the one that's refusing to go so that he can be heard. We've heard the other side. We need to hear the other side, the odi alteram partem rule, and he is refusing. What is the basis for his refusal? He gave reasons, South Africans. You are the judge. In my view, all the reasons do not make sense. And he concludes then by saying that I have never refused to make a statement or a submission or denied to make a statement or submission to help assist the Commission of Inquiry. Now, all of these reasons, all of these complaints, in my view, South Africans do not hold water. And the personal relationship issue, it falls, in my view, flat. It is not the basis that we can take seriously. The comments made by Justice Zondo, in my view, I cannot take them seriously. They are not issues that one can recuse himself of. The public announcements is not something that we can take seriously also. Then the issue around the doubt of bona fides cannot be something that we take seriously. And then lastly, South Africans, the issue of getting certain witnesses, according as Zuma has put it, is problematic, because every single one who is a South African, who has knowledge of state capture, or who wants to give evidence against state capture, is welcome to approach the commission, and they would probably allow the person to take a stand. So having said that, South Africans, what I want to say to you is that it is premature for Zuma to want to apply at this time, but the basis of these reasons to apply for the recusal of Chief Justice is not going to work. Even if he would, even if, for example, the Chief Justice would accept the recusal, there will be serious ramifications, because one, over R1 billion has been spent. Two, the person who's a judge that will take over will require almost another year to go through the same processes, because in order for him to be able, at the end of the day, to make recommendations and findings, he would have to seriously have had all the witnesses, and it is another money, it is another waste. So South Africans, I'm saying it would not be in the interest of Deputy Chief Justice to recuse himself. Fourthly, those recommendations would still are not final in determining the guilt and innocence of anybody. They are still going to go through the NPA, through the president, then through the NPA, who will make a determination whether there's prima facie evidence or not. Only if there's prima facie evidence or reasonable evidence upon which a reasonable court can convict would they then convict. So that is my view, South Africans, that we do not have to jump the gun. So hold your horses currently, JZ. We know your tactics by now. We appreciate your resilience over the years, but you must answer. And then we appreciate your involvement. We want to hear you, and we are interested to hear what you have to say, but do not derail us and do not try to remove our attention from what the issues are. Having said that, subscribers, friends, and South Africans, thank you very much for listening to me. And I'm going to, in the preceding series, deal with other issues. We're going to look at what is the test for recusal. We're going to deal with many other issues that relate to this so that you understand the whole process and all issues that are pertinent that deals with a recusal. And I'm now interested to go look. You can look at the time I made this video. Zondo has just started to speak now. And I'm also equally interested to know whether my predictions are right or wrong. But in law, we are clear. 2 + 2 is not always 4. Whether I'm wrong, I'm right. But the logic and the thinking and the reasoning behind it is equally important. I thank you.